Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about teaching from scratch. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Hi Frederick, universities teach students how to write programs quote unquote from scratch, but they often neglect teaching how to revise and improve an existing program. Why do you think that that is? Because the university professors are not professional programmers and may or may not suck at their job. Because I can tell you right now that it's actually a fairly common interviewing strategy to give a new candidate who's going to do an interview or a technical interview a half finished project and ask them to implement a feature or fix bugs or stuff like that and so forth and so forth. And usually, this is what I tell people that getting a degree, it doesn't matter if it's a boot camp or if it's like at a university or something like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are prepared to do the work. It is going to teach you some coding and so forth, but you have to be a little bit humble about the fact that, well, the school is going to teach you to code, hopefully, and some theory, but you have no guarantees about who's going to be doing the teaching. I mean, in my high school days, guys, we could take like our first introduction course to programming. I didn't even take it, but my friend did. He did. It was C, and it was taught by the math teacher. This guy has never worked a single day as a software developer in his entire life. He took one introduction course, as far as I know, and now he's teaching C. That's a light, easy language to master, you think, for like 16-year-olds or whatever we were in those days. Can't remember. So usually that is what it comes down to. It's the same thing when you go to any teacher, really, and that's why I always give away the tip that don't learn from just one person. If you think that you're going to learn everything that there is to know about software development from, say, me by just watching my little videos here or whatever, like tutorials I've made and so forth, that you're kidding yourself. It's the same thing if you just go to Udemy or just Udacity or whatever or free code camp, doesn't matter which one you're using, right? Try to get a bit of a range because very different teachers have different approaches, different styles, and they resonate differently with different people. So one of the best quotes that I've ever heard, I'm not even sure if I came up with it. I can't remember now. I'd like to think that I did, but I probably didn't. And that is to remember that when you're teaching something, you have to say the same thing at least three different ways, because you have no way of knowing which student is going to pick up what from what you're trying to explain. And you can't just give out one message and then think that the whole class is going to understand. And that's why I argue for people to try to be good students, because the thing is, it's great if you have a great teacher, and if you can if you pair a great teacher with a great student, magic starts to happen. But if you are a student and you get a shitty teacher, then you're pretty screwed if you let that dissuade you. And sadly enough, a lot of universities are focusing on only the basics in many cases, and update like the real professional grade software development work isn't really something that they're going to put you into. Like most of their concern is to give you the basics of the basics. So if you want to learn how to revise existing code and work with real code projects and stuff like that, you might, if before you like even get into the industry, the best option for you is to get yourself a coding buddy, collaborate on a project together, or join an open source project. It's not necessarily something that is super serious or something super big, but something at the very least. Get yourself some pro bono work. Do something similar to like a professional grade project for, like on Upwork or whatever, like some basic freelancing and stuff like that. Because the fundamental issue is like if the schools are going to teach you how to revise an existing program, they kind of have to have a code base, and most of them don't. And even in my little example there with the coding test and stuff like that, it's just usually it's just a trivial little application that you can add some stuff to that will actually teach you something. And I'm pretty sure that you can go online and find someone who's made some nice templates or stuff like that. Not sure where you would find it. I've never tried it myself because I got into the industry very quickly, even though I didn't have this prep work, because my school, of course, as most schools, focused on just giving us the fundamentals to do from scratch work and so forth and so forth. But you are correct. I even remember my old teacher who was teaching me Java. I remember that he did not know how to create a runnable jar file, like during class. He completely choked. He didn't know. And the reason was very simply because he said, I've never worked in all the years he's been working. He had worked for like 15, like something years as a professional software developer. Not once have I started on a fresh project. And that is a very real reality for you. That's why I myself, for example, have made, like, if you go to my GitHub account, like, I should have hundreds of projects, I think, where I've just made stuff from scratch over and over and over, so I can really get the whole experience of how to take a project from there's nothing to work in production code. That is a very good investment for you. And if you are concerned about these sort of things, as I said, pair the learning you're doing in schools and universities. Understand that their focus might be something that is not make this person into a fully fledged software developer with like hands-on experience with how it's going to be in the real workforce. Understand that that might not be exactly what they're going to try to give you, and try to fill in the gaps yourself. Try to be a good student. That's your best option, and do some have like some diligence to go and look at the stuff that you're not getting from the schools themselves. So what I want you to take away from this is that my guess is that the reason why you usually do see universities and some boot camps and stuff like that to do things from doing things from scratch as opposed to using existing code is because when everybody's very fresh and very new, it's pretty tricky to jump into a new and someone else's code and add stuff to it. That is very tricky. And I don't blame any of the universities or anything like that for this, because as I said, like, the universities guys, most professional, like the really good, like good software developers, they don't teach at universities, they work. So it's kind of hard to get someone who is earning most likely a lot more than the average university professor, or like, vocational school teacher or something like that, to motivate them to go and like teach this sort of stuff. And then there's of course politics and curriculums and stuff like that involved. So there's a bunch of stuff that might get in the way of you getting the sort of experiences that you want in order to be ready for the real work. But try to remember that, like, guys, not even doctors have that good of a prep education in order to like go into like medicine and stuff like that. They also have to have a period of like hands-on learning and like learning on the job and stuff like that. And although software development is of course a different field, and I'm not going to try to compare the two necessarily, I would like to draw a parallel to that. No school can teach you a full profession and have you just completely prepared for it. It's sad, I agree, that they don't have like that, because and that's not just for software development, I just say that in general for the education system. I wish personally that the education system was a little bit less political and more focused on survival skills, because the education system should ideally put the students in a state where they are as prepared as they can be to meet the expectations of the open market and industry and achieve all their dreams and goals and all that sort of stuff, right? I like to talk about it as a survival. If we lived for a few hundred years ago, the best education you could get was literally learn how to hunt or grow crops or something like that, because it was necessary for you to survive. And I wish that the same sort of essence was still true today. Some schools do this really well, some don't. And that's why I keep urging you to be a good student. Take what you're getting from the universities and then add what you're not getting. And to do that, open source projects, collaborate with a friend and like start working together, stuff like that. Reach out to like pro bono organizations or whatever to do more serious projects, to do your own experimentations and stuff like that. Because as I said, you can't really know what sort of person, like what type of university is gonna, like how they're going to think about the curriculum. And some schools are going to be great with like really, really great teachers, and some of them are going to suck ass, I'm sorry to say. And you have no way usually of knowing what you're going to end up with. And that's why personal investment is very important here, because I'm sad to say that, well, schools generally don't get dissuaded by having students who don't really follow along or stuff like that. It's very tricky to find a balance between having like all the students really get the materials and really get them to teach them all the things that they know, and then also fit all that into one single curriculum, because they have to focus on something, and maybe the thing that they are focusing on is the most efficient way that they know of, whereas what you want to learn might be something that you're going to have to go and learn somewhere else. And I can vouch for that myself. The school that I went to, they taught us a lot. A lot of it was useful, some of it was not useful, and a lot of things I had to learn in my spare time. And I urge you to have the same mentality. So bottom line, be a good student. Have a great day.